Hello, everyone, and welcome to Foggy with a Chance of Seagulls. My name is Clark Weininger. I'm joined by my co-host, Evan Lindsay. We're going to be talking Giants baseball. Episode 2, we're getting into it. Evan, how you doing?
Episode 2, I am doing so great. I kind of don't want to waste any time. I just kind of want to start talking because I just went to the Giants game last night at the Mets at Citi Field. What a game. Crazy game, lots of stuff happening, good and bad, but ultimately such a fun time. I want to shout out my friend Molly, who got me these tickets for my birthday, and Tori and Luke. They all went with me, and it was just such a good time. I would say of the New York baseball experience, the Mets field is way better than Yankee Stadium. Yankee Stadium is, but Citi Field is a classic baseball experience, and I loved it. There's so many things I want to say, but number one on the list, of course, is we got to talk about Patty Barrels.
Patty Barrels. Well, let's back up just slightly.
Yes.
So this will probably drop on Monday. We're recording Saturday morning, so we will not know what the results of Saturday and Sunday are. But yeah, we saw the Patrick Bailey, or you saw the Patrick Bailey Superstar game. Go into some of your observations being there. I noticed quite a few Giants fans on the broadcast. So walk through kind of what the game was like, what the atmosphere was like, and when he hit that homer in the 8th inning.
Yes, totally. Well, there's a lot of Giants fans at the ballpark, like you said. It was nice to, there's a lot of orange, but there's orange and black, which is the correct combination. Saw a lot of people. It was a good time. And, the game, the first little bit of the game was, the first half of the game was, it wasn't going so well for us. There was some, speaking of Patrick Bailey, couldn't handle that throw from Matos from center. But, it was just so fun to see this team play live with the young guys up. It was, the Mets fans. I see you, Mets fans. It's a good fan base. You've been treated poorly by your ownership and your team for a long time. They've tried their best, but it always ends up.
And even when their ownership comes in, and tries to make it right,
they still can't.
Ends in a dumpster fire. So,
but it's still a good and competitive team, and so it was a really competitive game. A lot of back and forth. Matos has been scuffling a little bit lately, but also going to try to describe the players. Matos, our young new stud center fielder. He just see him play.
21 years old.
21 years old. Such a joy to watch him play. And that's a guy who can hit, $150 and still stick out there in center because he's that good out there. And it was just, I was like, what's nice about this Giants team is, I'm not the first to say this, but, I wasn't worried the whole time. I was like, this is we're not playing our best, but, we got guys that can come up and do something big. And man, that home run, I lost my damn mind, truly yelling. A Mets fan looked back to me and was like, shut the up. And I was like, I didn't even hear them. I was just on cloud 9. And I just want to say the way that 9th inning and Bailey getting Marte was just such a, you mentioned it. It's a superstar moment. This kid, Patrick Bailey, is, we had another catcher. I know we talked about this last week, but we've had a lot of friends and family reach out and say that they've checked it out, even though they're not Giants fans. And Patrick Bailey is a guy who, we had another guy that was going to be our catcher, Joey Bart. Where is he? I don't know. All love, shout out to him. But,
he's been slowly ramping up in AAA. Hit a grand slam a couple nights ago. But still love you. Still love you, Joey. But
still love you, Joey.
Patrick has kind of stolen our hearts.
Patrick is it just feels different. He is, as Bags mentioned in his article today, the not having it thing, Dave Fleming won't just throw out a reference to Buster like that. That's an important thing, and Giants fans know what that means. So I just felt like to see an alignment up the middle of Bailey, Doval, Schmidt, Matos, is just like, wow.
Future.
Just so amazing. And for Bailey to come up huge in that spot, gun down, the Mets bring in Starling Marte to pinch run. He's
Everyone
been
knows
successful.
he's gonna steal. Yeah, he's stolen 30
going.
bases this year.
Exactly. And this guy is throwing out double the amount of the league average of base runners in a year where they made the bases bigger so that it's easier to steal.
Yeah.
And this guy is just, he just has the right arm angle and the right speed, and it's such an accurate arm. And that was momentum killer to the max. All they needed was one run to tie. And so a moment like that, Bailey to Schmidt, Doval, speeding up his unload time to get it home quick enough so Bailey could throw. Just such a beautiful moment. Just a great night at the ballpark. And a lot of fun.
Well said. I'm so glad you were at that game too. It was one of those for 70% of that game. It was like, kind of a bummer that this is the game. Not that, like you said, we've watched this team enough this year to know that they have a flair for the dramatic in the late innings, so it wasn't over. But they were striking out. They had no idea what to do with Carrasco. They were struggling mightily. And then on the other hand, it was like the Mets were blooping a double down the line. They were hitting a soft grounder that went through. It just didn't feel like our night. And, well, it ended up being our night. And and it really, I think, demonstrates the difference in these two teams. And I saw these two teams play back in May when the Mets were in San Francisco, and they were a far superior ball club. And it was like a 4-game set. I actually went to 2 of the games, and it was like, we're not this caliber team. We're not that good. And in a month and a half, the fortunes have completely changed. And like you said, so much of it is this youth movement that it just could not have been expected in this way. And Schmidt and Matos are going through some struggles at the plate, but their at-bats are looking good. I mean, Schmidt laid down a beautiful bunt in the 9th inning and was on third base with 1 out and was making stuff happen. And Doval is...
Matos was hitting it hard, too. Like, he wasn't getting the results, but to his credit, he was stinging it across the field.
Lining out to center like every time on 3-2 counts. I mean, he's a stud. But then all this to say that, like, Patrick Bailey is batting .320. He's got 5 homers, 6 homers now. And he was in single A last year batting .220. And it's like, he won, now to his credit, he won a minor league gold glove last year. So the defense was not expected, because you never expect a kid to come up and just dominate the run game and dominate behind the plate like he has. But I mean, this kid has no flaws in his game except for maybe a 3% walk rate, which
a little
pretends
concerning.
to maybe him not being a .320 hitter for his career. But like you said, with Schmidt, with Matos, these kids who've come up are such good defenders. They can bat .240, and their value is still that of a major league starter. But when they hit like they're hitting, then they're in that superstar mode, which is super exciting.
And I think, I mean, you look at, this is, again, like you just said, I don't think it can be emphasized enough. This guy was in, like, not the upper levels of the minors very recently. And so to make this kind of rise and to look this comfortable this quickly, and for him and Matos to look like that is really impressive. And I think you can't, and then you look at it and then you go, what was the change? What was the switch? And I don't think that we know yet. And I think, you saw that Kapler said, like, I think maybe he just always thought of himself as being a major leaguer, seeing himself in that uniform. And then he put it on and it was just like, it all clicked. And sometimes that's just true with like young guys. It's just like, it's like you're grueling through the minors. You're like getting paid $2 a day or whatever the hell you get. And then, and then you're in the majors and you're getting the attention from the coaches that you need. You're getting the resources that you need. You're getting the diet that you need, the workouts that I don't know. It just feels like maybe those were the things that he needed to like just step up and immediately be good. And I just wanted to call this out too. I was thinking about the draft in which we drafted Patrick Bailey, which was 2020, which is very recently. And
that draft,
just,
man. Ooh.
I mean, in that draft, we have Bailey, Harrison, and Schmidt, who are such a big part of our plans. And you think back to, I forget the names of the scouts and like the people who were in charge of the draft back in the day, but we used to just get these big home runs, and I'm wondering, I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but like maybe some of these guys are going to be these franchise cornerstone guys. It has that feeling. And you look at the other players that they could have taken in the draft. They didn't have, I forget where he went. It was like 15 or 16 or something like that, but not super high. But he has right now the highest WAR, which is wins above replacement, like the value of a player, of all position players from that draft who have been promoted to the majors. The only people who have higher WAR than him are Bryce Elder and Spencer Strider for the Braves, two pitchers who went in the late rounds who who would have known that those would be the guys. And so I'm really...
Braves, man.
The Braves. Wow, the Braves. But I just bring that up to say, I think I'm really impressed by, this is, as we talked about last week, and we talked about Patrick Bailey a lot last week too, it's like, this is the realization of Farhan and Kapler's vision for this team is, let's get, we know we have Joey Bart and we like him too, and we're going to do the best that we can with him. But we have a different vision of maybe who are going to be the successful players at the major league level. And you're wondering if maybe we're going to see some guys, in the next few years that are coming up through our system and just keeping the train rolling. And so, I don't know. It's a good feeling for sure.
Well, and what I think is really important to kind of add into this conversation too is there was an article this week from Alex Pavlovich of NBC Sports Bay Area chronicling our equipment staff, our travel logistics staff. I don't know their exact titles. And we'll link the article. But it detailed basically our travel staff do everything they can to set these guys up for success. And baseball is really grueling until you are an established major leaguer. So for Matos and David VR, who's been up and down this year to AAA and the big league club, JD Davis and Mitch Haniger got hurt in the same game in St. Louis. And they were in Texas playing one of the either Houston or the Rangers minor league team. And VR and Matos needed to be up by that next day because at least one of them was going to be activated. It ended up being Matos, and then VR joined very soon after. And they get the call, okay, two of our guys are hurt, and our staff make all the travel logistics. They told VR, because the last time he had to travel kind of on a red eye, the airline lost his luggage. And so they were like, bring a glove and nothing else. Will have everything for you when you get here. And he gets off the plane. They have this really cool quote in there too, because they also talked about making sure that they have family for all of these prospects' debut. And so they have a quote in this article that's really cool. It's like, we handle everything so you can focus on what your job is, which is playing baseball. Yeah. And you don't have to be texting your wife, your mom, your dad at 4 a.m. being like, okay, well, I think there's this flight that you could hop on this one. It's like, they get all of that covered. And yeah, I just was blown away by how much that said about the organization. It just is a top tier organization from top to bottom. It's not an organization that's going to cut corners, that's going to, shell out money just to say that they did, but they understand the impact of, I don't know, just treating people with kindness, being accommodating, making these guys feel welcomed when they come to the big leagues. And then you see these rookies immediately start to perform because they don't have to worry about, oh, am I taking this guy's job? Is he going to hate me if I perform well? Or, oh, this veteran is established. He's giving me the side eye every time I come into the locker room. It's a really cohesive group of guys. And I think that has to be part of the conversation when we're talking about these young guys. So great article. Yeah. I highly recommend all of you to read it. But yeah, that really
Yeah,
stuck out to me.
totally. I second that recommendation, and you know, I make music. I haven't talked about that much on this podcast, but I won't. But I think that it reminds me of this organization is just like a big band of egoless players. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, you want me to play the triangle? That's going to be the best thing for this song.
Yeah.
Sure, that's what I'll do. Do you know what I mean? And it's like they have like the booking agents and the publicists and all the people that just like setting it up so the musicians can just get on stage and play. They're just setting it up so the players can just get on the field and play and do their best. And it's really impressive. And I think just to speak to the quality of the organization too, this article came out a few weeks ago, but I think it was on The Athletic maybe, with Drew Robinson, who was a player in the Giants organization who attempted suicide. He lost his left eye and then decided to like make his life mission to like talk about mental health with anybody. But he's been, you know, a part of the Giants organization doing that. And I think it's just like, I don't know, to have somebody who's just like, this is what I'm struggling with right now. Do you know what I mean? Just emotionally, spiritually, or whatever. And to be able to like have somebody who can, you know, you can as a player be like, this is what's going on with me, and not like, you know, because there's like sports psychologists and stuff like that now or whatever. But it's different when you can just be like, you know, person to person, this is what I'm going through. And I think that that's just like a little microcosm of the organization as a whole and what it represents. It's like, it's a holistic way to look at how you like, you know, make a baseball player succeed. And I think it kind of, I don't know, it feels very reflective to me of, you know, San Francisco as a city has changed a lot in the last decade, but I think San Francisco at its best is like, you know, it's a very like loving community space that like is just like, I don't know, you just want to see people succeed. And so anyway, it brings me kind of to the Toronto series because we had two old friends that we got to meet up with again there, Brandon Belt and Kevin Gausman. And I think it's they're both interesting players to examine their path to the Blue Jays. We were in Toronto this week. Did we win one and drop two?
We won the first game where Gausman started. He looked completely unhittable through 12 strikeouts over like 6, maybe 7 innings. Dominated us, but once again, late inning energy. Tyro hit a huge 2-run double to knock in Bailey, and we won 3-0. And then the next 2 games we struggled a little bit, but it was really cool though to see Gausman perform. I think I was in a lot of text conversations being like, why'd we let Gausman go? And I completely I feel it, but I also understood, and we can get into a little bit more of the why of that in just a sec, but it definitely felt like he was the one that got away a little bit there. But then it was cool to see Brandon Belt and just hear him interviewed, his dry wit, that dry sense of humor, talking about how excited he would be to hit a homer off Logan Webb. Meanwhile, it was the rest of the Blue Jays that did that for him. I think it was cool.
I think I'd love to just like examine like the journey too of it, and it's Kevin Gausman. Cole Kuiper referred to him as wifey material, and I have to agree. He really, he, you know, speaking of the org, I think he was a big fan of being a Giant and like liked the people around him. Him and Logan Webb are good buds, and they hang out all the time, which makes it sting all the more. But you know, he came over in 2020, was it? And then was with us in 21 too. And then you know, we had multiple chances to keep him around. But you know, he's kind of he went through the Mike Yastrzemski process of, you know, a middling Oriole that we turned into like a really productive major leaguer. And
I have a buddy from college who is such a big Orioles fan. Shout out Jason Voss. And I remember in college used to talk to me about Gausman and Bundy. Once we get these guys up, our success, our organization is just gonna keep going. Oh, I can't wait to get these young pitchers up. And neither of them could make it work. with the O's, and Gausman bounced to the Braves. When he got to the Giants, he was a reliever. He had flamed out as a starter, and we made magic work. We're lauded for our coaching staff and player development staff, and especially at the major league level, and really helped him focus on that fastball high in the zone and that splitter that dives off the plate. And he became a borderline all-star for us. Yeah. And we decided not to give him a contract after he became a free agent after the 2021 season. He struggled a little bit in that playoff series against the Dodgers, and felt like teams had kind of figured him out a little bit of like, okay, if the ball's coming in high, it's going to be a fastball. I swing. Mm-hmm. If it's coming in low, it's going to be that splitter that's diving off the table. I'm going to leave it. And I think the Giants, for that reason, as well as just the financial commitment before they had started this kind of sustainable run of bringing up young guys and getting talent from our minor leagues, didn't want to invest what it ended up taking to sign him, which the Blue Jays, I think, signed him for like 5 years, $100 million or something. Yeah. Which we have the money for. So that it's tough to look back and just be like, we let a guy who was in our organization, as you said, wifey material, great clubhouse guy. Everyone loved him. But I'm also at the same time so happy that he's killing it for the Blue Jays. And he's been the best pitcher in the American League for the last 2 years. So, yeah,
totally. I mean,
props to Gausman.
Props to Gausman in a big way. And I think just one point I wanted to bring up that I thought of when you were talking was like, it's the way that we're developing pitching now at the major league level. When we let Dave Righetti go, I was like, what? Do you know what I mean? Like, Dave Righetti was like such a huge part of the dynasty era for the Giants. You know, the Bumgarners, Canes, Lincecums, all those guys. He was a great player. He was a great coach too. But it's the vision that the org had for like where they wanted to go. And I think what's happening now and why the Giants are a destination for pitchers to come to is you can really revive your career here or find that second gear that you've been looking for and have it be a sustainable thing for you, because we would have guys come up. What's that guy's name who like threw like Chris Heston or like the Strat or like, you know, we'd have guys like have a year of like Derek Rodriguez, like there'd be like a year of something, but like it never could sustain year to year. Yep. But what you're seeing with Gausman and why it stings is because he's continued to just pitch at a high level. He's found a way to make it work for him long term. And so anyway, proud of him and proud to like, not proud, but it's fun to like have players like that you can root for on other teams, that there's a little fun rivalry between us both. Cause like otherwise without Belt and Gausman on the Blue Jays, it's like, what, you know, root against Bo Bichette. Like, I don't know. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Two thoughts to that. First one, I think, you know, that's Vlad Guerrero Jr. erasure, and I will not stand for it.
I mean, but I'm rooting for him. I like him, though, is the problem.
I'm just kidding. But no, I think you make a really good point. And I think to what we're talking about, the Giants were really set out to build this organically. And so a couple days later, we play the third game of that series, and Keaton Wynn starts. And he's a guy we drafted in either 2018 or 2019. I can't remember, in the 5th round. Kid from a town of like nowhere. 180 people in Iowa. Shouts to my Midwest brothers and sisters. But no, I mean, and so he has the same repertoire as Gausman. And I think we clearly looked at it as cutting costs a little bit. I think that has to be mentioned. But acknowledging that we have the intentions to build this like player development system that churns out guys like this and isn't going to have a guy flame out after a year, either because of overuse or wrong role. So we're going to find the right role for these guys. And Wynn came up and was coming out of the bullpen, showed enough and got his first start. And he was pitching so well in that start until he hung a splitter to Vlad Guerrero and he hit it 800 feet.
Yeah.
and our offense didn't show up. So he got the loss hung on him. But
got caned on that one.
He got caned, and that's how I know he's going to be a great Giant. No, but yeah, like we signed Gausman for a couple of years, fixed him up, and he got a big contract. Rodon pitched for us for a year last year. He was looking for, that long-term contract, got it with the Yankees. Hasn't pitched this year because of injury, but, I'm hoping by the end of that contract, he'll be pitching well. And I think that's the idea behind some of our veteran pitching signings. And then bringing up guys from the minor leagues. We've mentioned Kyle Harrison, who will be coming up at some point this year, but Keaton Wynn, Tristan Beck, Sean Jelly, these guys who are in these kind of hybrid roles coming out of the bullpen, and being maximized by our coaches, by our front office, and it's exciting to see. So on the one hand, it's sad to see Gausman not pitching like he is in the orange and black, but it's a lot easier to handle when we're winning, I think.
Yeah, totally. And I want to make sure that we talk about the other Blue Jay, Brandon Belt, who is an all-time great Giant in our book. I think if you haven't been following the Giants in the last decade, then you maybe have not been privy to the belt wars that have been taking place. He is a player that was widely maligned for his slumpy shoulders and like bad attitude or something. He just strikes out a lot, and that's his game. Is he takes walks, he strikes out, he hits home runs, he plays good defense, and he's been a hugely valuable player for the Giants org. But we let him walk this year because Lamont Wade Jr. was the heir apparent, and he really has been like just playing like prime Brandon Belt, which is kind of hilarious to see. But
it's to that same point I was just making with the Gausman thing. We just take a composite of a type, and then we go, okay, you're going to make more money elsewhere. Good. We're excited for you. We're going to fill your role with the exact same stats, basically, which is very Moneyball esque too, which that's where Farhan originally started, our president of baseball operations. So, but yeah, it was special to see Belt though. And to see him do well, and he's really settling in Toronto, because I think, to your point, he can be a hard player to really understand. He's this tall first baseman, and you would assume power. And he does have home run power, but his game is, like you were saying, taking walks, moving the line, so to speak, which is a Bochy-ism from back in the day, but just like making sure you're setting up your teammates for success in their next at-bats. Getting pitches out of the pitcher so you can get a starter out of the game early. Some of these things that don't show up immediately. It's not a 500-foot home run and you're going, wow, this guy's incredible. But great first base defense. And I think if you could go back in time and say, hey, this is the composite of what a great leadoff hitter looks like, I think even though he's, not the fastest, although when he was coming up, he had pretty decent speed for a first baseman.
One season. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think, Wade is not a burner by any stretch of the imagination, but we've had him lead off this entire season because this organization understands that those qualities are perfect in the leadoff spot. So it feels like kind of an ode to Brandon Belt that we have a roster of all these guys. You mentioned in the last show about Jock taking the walk-off walk, but like these are guys who are patient, are willing to work through at bats, and it just goes down the line. Every guy now takes long at bats and puts that pressure on a pitcher, and I think so much of it is based in the philosophy of Brandon Belt, who was maximized in his final few years here when the administration took over, the different kind of organizational philosophy took over here. So, great to see Brandon.
I want to mention too, just like what a fun guy that dude was. Like, if you're really like, one of his quotes, I think you sent me this, was like, he was like, what did he say to Webb? Do you know what I'm talking about? It was like, Oh God, I need to pull it up. It's something about embarrassing his whole family, like I don't or
Yeah.
something like that. Just like he just had such a
Completely
dry sense of
deadpan.
humor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the baby giraffe of it all. In 2021, assuming the role of the captain,
Oh
like
my
kind of
God.
sarcastically, and like if you're a Bay Area sports fan and you haven't been following, or even if you're not, he's been a very like Clay Thompson-esque figure, kind of like
A good
weirdly
call.
enigmatic, but like dry, but I don't know, and like they both do boats stuff or whatever, and it's just like he's a great Bay Area guy. Love him forever. We'll root for him forever. I'd honestly love to see him like I don't know. Maybe like in a couple years, like he can just like have
Mm,
a little stint and retire with us or something. Like he's definitely going in the Giants Hall of Fame. So I think all
absolutely.
time great Giant.
Great Giant.
Should we move
Quickly,
on?
before we move on,
Yes.
um, to that note of great Giant Brandon Belt, you mentioned the captain hat, but I also just wanted to shout out his 18th inning home run in that 2012 playoff run, where yeah, I don't know. That's just a moment that is etched into my brain. A home run that I will never forget. If I ever see the highlight, it will immediately bring a smile to my face.
Yeah.
And just illustrates, he was a crucial, crucial part to two World Series teams. He is an absolute no-brainer Giants Hall of Famer. But more
Yeah.
importantly, just like a great guy to root for and really fun.
Yeah.
So shouts to
I
Brandon
always
Belt.
I will always remember where I was, which was I played a show in like nowhere, Massachusetts, and I was like, I'm gonna miss it a little bit. But it was kind of like in a bar with TVs, and so it was up, and so I was kind of like checking as I was playing a little bit, like on the screen, and I was like, but when I actually start to play, it's like I can't be looking at the TV the whole time. But then it was,
Don't worry, we'll play
it went into
another 9 innings for you.
exactly, and I stayed there for whatever it was, an hour more, 2 hours more, whatever it was, just waiting for this game to be over. And that's an all-time moment. Also, shout out Yusmero Petit as well. But yeah, let's move on. Should we
Let's
talk
move on.
about to the relievers, maybe?
Yeah, so we talked about this a little bit with the Keaton win, Tristan Beck, but I think what the Giants are doing with their pitching staff is really interesting, and I think needs to be discussed. And we'll talk about it a little bit right now, but I think it'll be an ongoing theme. That game that we played against Gausman, where he struck out 12, we won because we threw a shutout with 4 different pitchers. We had an opener, Ryan Walker, who throws like a crossfire delivery from the right side. Then
Also,
we threw
just stepped in for Brebbia, no problem, which is kind of
again
crazy, honestly.
another rookie. We haven't mentioned him at all, but fantastic start to his career this year. Then we throw Alex Wood, who just throws every limb at you from the left side. So you've got Funk from the right, you got Funk from the left, and then Tyler Rogers comes in the 8th inning, throwing from beneath the ground, and then
from hell,
from hell hath brought this ball to you, and then casually Camilo Duvall throwing 103 mile per hour cutters. And after Tyler Rogers, and Kapler's been doing this all year, and it cracks me up every time. But after Duvall comes in throwing 83 mile per hour fastballs and these 72 mile per hour rising sliders that look like a UFO, then Duvall comes in throwing 100, and that 100 must look like 120 after Rogers just faced you. So it's just, I think, shouts to the bullpen, and we're doing a lot of kind of funky stuff. But yeah, I think that game just encapsulated the pitching staff.
Yeah. And I forget. I think Grant Prisby just wrote this article about what the Giants are going to do at the deadline, because we have a lot of people who could start, but we're not using them in that role necessarily. It's like doing this multi-inning thing, which also I don't know if he's listening, but shout out to my brother, because when we were young, he'd always be like, I feel like the starters and then relievers is not an effective way to do baseball. I feel like you should have one different pitcher every inning. And I think the Giants get closer and closer to that every day. And I was like, I used to make fun of him. I was like, that's so stupid. You don't know anything about baseball. Turns out he should have been hired for the front office. But I think we find ourselves in an interesting place where obviously you got Webby, and then you've got Cobb, who's been good. Not probably the number 2 that you want, but like probably solid number 3 material type guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, it's a little touch and go in terms of guys that you can count on innings from. And I think that come postseason time, we're probably going to keep doing the thing with the bridge relievers to Manaea and Junis and Beck and all these types of players. But I think you kind of need a 3, just like that's just how the postseason works. Like it has to be one with like a really solid. I think you can do it with 3. 4 is preferable, but I think it's interesting because we have such a glut of these types of pitchers. Grant was proposing maybe it's like guys are going out, like we trade from that depth, kind of like how the Rays are always like trading and like bringing guys, but they're always competitive, but letting these guys go. And because I don't know, I think that we kind of need a guy that we can rely on for that number 2, number 3 spot.
Yeah, I agree. I think it will be interesting. And today is July 1st, so trade deadline is in a month. It'll be interesting to see what we do, because you're absolutely right. That's where we'll miss Gausman the most, is game 2 of a playoff series if we get to the playoffs. But for now, it's helping us rack up wins, which is the most important thing. And this depth is amazing. It's a different guy every night, both offensively as well as from the pitching side of things. So, it's a fun time. And even when Webby gets hit around like he did on Wednesday, I believe, he pitches deep into the game to save some of the innings from our other relievers, because he's our one true like deep into game starter who is leading the league in innings, which is a huge stat, I think, in our modern baseball, where guys are 5 and dive so often. It's like, if Webby's pitching into the 7th inning, that's saving a couple innings from, like you said, the Junis, the Rebbias, all of it. So
I think it's like, the Giants have been rolling in June, and then kind of this week we hit a couple snags, and but it wasn't concerning to me. But I think the thing that it's bringing an extra starter, I think, is more the cumulative effect of having just one more guy that you can rely on, so that you can position, that people aren't tired, that you're not having to overuse guys, that you're just like putting them in position for success. So I think that's definitely something to look out for in the next month. And I think
I'm also interested to see if that ends up being Kyle Harrison. They are really keeping his innings low. He's had a hard time controlling the strike zone. He walks a lot of guys, and that is something that Farhan and company aren't super thrilled about. But he has insane stuff from the left side. And I wonder if they're kind of slow playing him this year to potentially prepare him for a postseason run. So keep an eye out for that.
I think he's an interesting case, because I think him, if I had to guess, I'd say like him, Matos, Luciano, and Bart are like the names that like probably most casual Giants fans know. And I think
Elliot Ramos as well.
Elliot Ramos too. But I think when you're in that position, I think there's a psychological component of that we don't always talk about. And I was reading Bag's article with Conforto, the former Met, which there's a lot of Mets on this current Giants team, which is funny.
Yeah, shouts to Wilmer, who hit a homer last night.
Yeah, shout out to Wilmer. But it, Conforto was able to find success because he kind of was able to, coming up as a Met in that organization, there was a lot of expectations as a first rounder and like what that would mean for him in the org, and especially with that fan base, they're better than the Yankees, but they're still brutal if you're not going to like come through. And I think every fan base is that way to different degrees. And I wonder if some level like that the guys that have been finding success with us at the major league level don't have that high prospect pedigree and that pressure to be like this guy to immediately step in and be, because we all are expecting Harrison to immediately come up and be a fixture in the rotation for years to come, and that's a lot of pressure on a guy. And I think that like, I don't know, this is just purely my based on intuition, but I think that that when you're pressing mentally, I feel like that's when command goes a little bit. And that's when you're walking guys because you're trying to just like throw it exactly in the right place. And it's just like, you just got to do the best with what you have on that day. And so anyway, rooting for Harrison, obviously. Hope he gets those strikeouts down. And the last thing I'll say about that is I think it's honestly good that they're keeping him down because it's keeps with the organizational philosophy of if you are performing, then you'll be up here, regardless of if you're outside the organization, if you have high prospect pedigree or not. Like, it's rewarding success. And so I think that it's good that they keep to their ethics on that one or whatever.
Yeah. No, exactly. Well, to wrap up, this is a non-Giants topic, but
for now.
But I just wanted to shout out real quick. We're a baseball podcast, mostly focusing on the San Francisco Giants, but we have an alien playing baseball right now that I feel like needs to just be mentioned. That Shohei Ohtani is doing things that if you tried to create a player in a video game, they would not allow you to create someone as good as Shohei.
It's
right now
unreal.
He has 30 home runs. Last year, at this time, Aaron Judge, who ended up breaking the all-time American League record, which no one cared about until Bonds owned the real home run record. But that's another topic for another time. But at this time last year, before breaking that record or just having the season that Judge did, he had 29 home runs at the end of June, and Shohei has 30. So he is on pace to have a pretty incredible second half, potentially chasing a home run record. Meanwhile, he is fourth in all of baseball in strikeouts as a pitcher. And I think one of my favorite bits that I've seen some Giants writers and other like national people do is like compare Shohei to the pitcher and batter composite that he is. So it's like if Aaron Judge and Kevin Gausman were the same person. And it's like, it's just absurd.
This guy, just for some additional context, if you don't know, this guy came over from Japan at 23, I think, right? And it was always that he was going to be a two-way guy. That was his whole thing. I'm not going to give up either side. I can do them both at a high level, but I want to do both, and I think I can do both at the major league level. And he's proving himself incredibly correct right now. I mean, the only comp is Babe Ruth. Truthfully, really, to me, like in the history of the major leagues and just what he's doing.
Who hasn't played in 100 years?
Yeah, and it just he's gonna make 500 plus 600. Well, I don't know, a lot of money this coming season. And I think why we're shoehorning this in is because, like, could he become a Giant? I don't know. I don't think so. I think that he's probably going to be a Dodger is where all reports are heading. But this is a guy who does what he wants to do at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I think he wants to be in a place where he is appreciated, where he can do the things that he can do. And I think he's a great fit. I mean, you know, if you're listening, Shohei, but like, I think that he really would fit in what we're trying to do in San Francisco in a big way. But yeah, what were you going to say?
No, I think there is a path for him coming to the Giants next year. So he is a free agent after this season. He has told the Angels that he wants to test free agency. They are still potentially in play. I think they're winning this year finally. So if he feels like, and they've brought up like 3 of their draft picks from last year who are all kind of doing well, which good for the Angels to finally have prospects that work out. But yeah, I mean, he's going to command a contract. I mean, this past offseason was kind of nuts with the contracts, but he could realistically command like a 10-year, $600 million contract. And that has just never even been close to being seen before. But he's worth it. I mean, he's 2 players in one. He's
2 players in one.
He's elite at both.
He's elite at both, and he's like, not only can he do both, but he's a great guy to follow. He's just the nicest dude, but still a competitor. Do you know what I mean? And he And I think that he's a person that's going to sell tickets. Like, I'm going to go pay tickets to see him play whoever this year.
He sells tickets in Oakland. When the Angels come to town, people go to A's games. Otherwise, people don't go to A's games. Shout out to the A's.
Shout out to the Las Vegas A's. But I don't know. I mean, it's the fit there is we've been looking for a guy like that can go on marketing materials and on the front of the ballpark. And I think he'd really look great in orange and black. So, we can only hope. But we'll link some videos in the show notes. We're going to start doing that moving forward. Anything we talk about, reference video or articles and stuff, we'll put it in the show notes. But I think I'm feeling good. Are you feeling good, Clark?
I'm feeling good. I got my Shohei excitement out. It's hard to keep it in, so I'm glad I was able to express that.
We do
just watching his highlights are. What?
Just before we end, a little t-shirt check. I just want to just for those watching us on video. If you're listening on audio,
shirt.
Thank you. Shout out to my brother for that one. But just wanted to mention that we are on YouTube as well. A couple of people asked about that, and we're going to keep putting out these video episodes. I mean, all you have to look at are our ugly mugs, but I think it's fun. It's a little bit more compelling, and if you haven't already, please, we're on Instagram, we're on all the podcast apps now, and
we just started a Twitter account too, so follow Foggy Siegel.
Yeah, Clark's a big Twitter guy, and I think that'll be a fun place if you're on Twitter as well. And just keep a lookout. We have big plans for the future. We're just gonna every week try to bring something new to the table. You might even be seeing multiple episodes a week at some point. Just keep an eye out for that. But thank you so much for joining us this week. It's been really fun. We're really excited to keep doing this. Just from the one episode, the support that we received from all our friends and family has been amazing. I think you wanted to shout out one person. Do you want to do that quickly?
Shout out to our friend Kelly Monfordini from high school, who is going to today's Giants Mets game. Shout out to her husband Eric, whose birthday it is today.
Happy birthday!
But she listened, talked about how great of an organization and how exciting it is to kind of talk about the fruits of the labor with the organization and just how many good guys and positive stories come from it. So that's what we're hoping to highlight. And we love the engagement. Please text some of your thoughts, ideas as well, things you want to hear and have us talk about. But more than anything, we're just happy to be doing this, and thanks for listening.
Yes, thank you so much. We'll release you from this podcast jail now. Go live your life. Go watch a Giants game, and we will see you next week.
Or watch Shohei Ohtani highlights.
You could just do that. All right, goodbye. Peace.
Bye.
Bye, baby.